Hey everybody, welcome to the Invest Answers Weekly Q&A. It's my favorite part of the week when all of my subscribers send in their questions and I answer them. These are things that are top of mind. They come in from multiple people at the same time. So here we are again. None of this is financial advice, as you all know. It's just for entertainment purposes. So the first question came in from Volkan Cetinkaya. I hope I pronounced that okay. His question was, what do you think about the Great Reset and how will it affect Bitcoin? This is a genius question. So for those who aren't familiar with the Great Reset is basically a wake-up call that's been driven by the pandemic that we are living in right now. And the whole idea is to redesign and reconfigure the world to solve issues like climate emergency, income inequality, recovery stimulus, and finally build a closer match between public sector and private sector. As you know, the top 1% of the world own 50% of the world's wealth, and then the top 0.1% of the world own probably 25% of the world's wealth. So there's massive income inequality, which is a big problem. And we're seeing cracks in the world today. Also, compound that with the fact that we have this area called MMT, which is modern monetary theory. This is a problem where governments are just printing money like crazy, and they believe it doesn't affect anything anymore. But they use taxes to control people, and that's going to break down as well at some stage in the future. So all the money printing that I see is going to drive inflation, and the inflation are going to hurt things like defined pension plans and the cost of living for people that need to survive. Again, it's a very punitive tax on people. So many will find their retirement unfunded, and if the type of inflation I see coming is going to happen, it's going to be an ugly situation. So my recent video about retiring on Ethereum has prompted a lot of retirement type questions, and the whole goal of this channel is to help people find ways to become free and be in a place where they can do whatever they want. So, as I always say as well, Bitcoin is in the right place at the right time, and all roads lead to Bitcoin, as I say. What I'm fearful though of is this new hate. There are two types of people in the world today. There's those that have bags and those that don't. And I've noticed a huge uptick in the animosity. It's almost correlated with Bitcoin, because the higher Bitcoin rises and the people that don't have it, they're getting more and more upset and angrier. And you see it everywhere. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But I always urge people to try get some Bitcoin insurance wherever possible. However, sadly, there's not enough Bitcoin for everybody to get on the crypto bus. So the earlier you can get in, the better. And people need to think not in terms of buying one Bitcoin at $50,000 or $49,100 as it is right now as I speak, but think in terms of Satoshis. One Satoshi today is worth 0.02 cents. And soon I believe it's going to be worth 0.2 cents. That's how fast Bitcoin is going up. Anyway, everybody needs to get on the train and get their Bitcoin insurance if possible. So for example, if you're worth $100,000, that's your net worth of you and your family, you need at least $150 worth of Bitcoin just to get started. And once you get started, it becomes easy after that. You just keep on accumulating. So great question, Volkan. Thank you so much. Second question we have today is from Rob Pierce. He said, do you have any position in marijuana stocks, and what's your feeling overall, and is this market a buy? So I do not claim to be a marijuana specialist, but I did analyze the marijuana stocks. I picked the top 8 or 10, and they all have something in common. They all have terrible financials, and they all have no prospect of profitability in most cases. And there was a big recent dump where the top companies are now on average 40% off their 52-week highs. And also, they are all on average about 723% overvalued. So that's enough math anyway. But however, net, they've got no profits, they're overvalued, they're not looking good to me. But the question I have is, how do you lose money selling drugs? I mean, look at the money that Starbucks makes selling caffeine. I don't know how these companies aren't making money. So that's a side note. Now, back to marijuana. What I do know about it is, evidence was found, from tombs 2,500, 3,000 years ago in parts of the world where people were using cannabis. So it has stood the test of time. And also, I believe there is a lot of applications for cannabis. So if I was to invest in the space, what I'd be looking for is the following. First of all, it has to be a company that can drive disruption. And for that, there has to be what I call vertical integration. The company needs to be able to own the growth, the manufacture, the enhancement, and the delivery and the retail aspect of the business. And that's where I see that. Now, also in terms of the drugs itself, there is a lot of opportunity for psychotherapeutic areas, helping people with mental issues. There is an element of cannabis that can be created called psilocybin. I hope I pronounced that right, which helps people with forms of addiction, anxiety, and depression. And apparently there's been a big uptick in a lot of this stuff as well because of the pandemic. There's more people who are depressed, more people who are abusing substances. So the quicker these types of solutions can come to market, the better. So that's where I would focus. In addition, from a medical perspective, I think there's also a lot of opportunity in the field of helping people like cancer patients, especially during torturous treatments like chemotherapy. And I think it can also help prevent things like epileptic seizures, especially in children. And it can even ease symptoms of things like multiple sclerosis and slow the progression of Alzheimer's. So all positive in the space, but just slinging the stuff that people smoke and just being on the retail side, I don't think is enough. I think the real opportunity is in the areas where you can use it to solve really hard problems that humans face. Okay, the third question today is from Cannabis Media Network. Funny, we just completed a question regarding cannabis. Now we're getting a question from Cannabis Media Network. They've just come in randomly. So, what do you think of Overstock? Don't they have a big blockchain crypto exposure? So basically Overstock is e-commerce for furniture, stuff that people build too much of and they sling it. It's in a very similar space to other companies like TJ Maxx and Ross. So not the most exciting of places, but they do own a company called TZero, which has ambitions for blockchain capital markets, and they promise 10% dividend back. But they only promise that when they're profitable, and I think that whole area is a little bit too far-fetched, and it's too far from their core business, so therefore I don't really believe in it that much. So who knows? Now, Overstock took some very aggressive steps in the year 2018 from their CEO, Mr. Byrne, to accept crypto payments for their merchandise, which I thought was a brilliant move. However, he abruptly left in August 2020, and I'm not sure of the reason exactly why. But he also sold, because he founded the company 20 years earlier, he sold 13% of the stock of the company, which is his holding, and pumped it into crypto and precious metals. So the question is, why did he leave his baby? You don't just abruptly up and leave like that after being such a visionary. Anyway, that's a red flag for me. Also, the stock has actually benefited a lot from the pandemic, just like companies like Etsy and others, but the revenue growth is low. And 5 years from now, forecasting out, they expect to make about $4 a share. So assuming the current stock price of 100, that's a PE of 25, which is not that good for a retailer. And analysts also target the value of the stock to be at about 100, so technically it's fully valued. So net, there's better places to put your money. I wouldn't touch Overstock. So the fourth question today is from Alan W. He said, when you look at the peak of the Google Trends, buy crypto, in 2017, that was the peak of Bitcoin. So do you think it's still bullish where we are, reaching new highs on Google Trends? So a couple of things. First of all, buy crypto searches in Google search to all-time highs in January of this year, far exceeding the previous peak of early 2018, according to the analytics company, the TAI. Ethereum also blew up, and buy crypto, buy Ethereum were top search terms all over the world. However, Bitcoin was a little bit lower than 2017. But the world is very different now. Back in 2017, everything was driven by retail, and now it's all institutional, with some latecomers from the retail world jumping in. So again, I just think it's a different world. I think what's more important maybe to look at now is the Twitter volume. So Twitter volumes, all Twitter terms devoted to cryptocurrency in January 2021 were the highest ever, reaching 3.3 million. And that was up from 1.3 million in September 2020. So Bitcoin leads the way in Twitter posts at about 75% of the 3.3 million tweets. So that's probably a more important thing to look at. And I don't think it's any concern because, again, it's all institutional right now. It's no longer retail. So let's jump ahead and look at the fifth question. So this question is from Rusty Shackleford. And he said, if one were to move out of the US, what countries, in your opinion, would be best in terms of future economy, taxes, quality of life, as well as ease of relocating to and establishing citizenship? Or do you believe the US is the best place to be long term? Very interesting question. I think, again, my Ethereum video prompted a lot of these types of questions. And people are looking for places where they can have a good quality of life and live differently. Again, I think a lot of this has been prompted by the pandemic. People just want to get out of the rat race and live in peace and live well. So I think the US has a lot going for it. and it's still one of the best countries in the world in which to live. However, many Americans seek a better life outside in other countries, and the ones that are most chosen by Americans tend to be those that are geographically proximate, such as Mexico and Canada. But there are others as well that are proving to be very popular, like Thailand, Georgia, the country, not the state, and even places like Spain and Vietnam, and of course parts of Indonesia, even far-flung places like New Zealand. But some countries are easier to get into than others. Some countries are crypto-friendly, some are not, and these are really important factors. Also, as people get older and look to retire, I think it's really important for people to look at the medical system that's available in those countries. And believe it or not, there are places like Cuba that have really advanced medical systems. So that would be a very important factor. So each country comes with its own benefits and advantages and disadvantages. Some people like different climates, dry climates, wet climates, rain, sun, beach, mountains, you name it. So look for a good, safe environment with a climate that fits your needs, with access to things you want. Also airports so family can come visit and you can get out of there when you need to. And also critical would be a good medical system. And of course, cheap quality of living. But if you're funding your retirement with crypto, make sure you go to a crypto-friendly country. And I won't mention any of the names that are no longer crypto-friendly because I don't want to upset people that may live in some of those countries, but you know the countries I'm talking about, and it would be a shame for your crypto confiscated or not accessible. So that was the 5th question today. Now, the final question of the day is the fun question, but this one is not really so much fun, but it's the one that came in. This is from XRemayy. He said, what happens when you're in Russia as a tourist and you get stopped by the police and they find a crypto broker app in your phone? Are you going straight to the Gulag? So this is a very interesting question. I've been to Russia a bunch of times as well as China. And now these governments, they're cracking down on crypto. Government officials in places like Russia are not allowed to hold crypto. Also, these countries are very good at looking at who you are, what you do through your phone. So I'd be very, very worried about taking something like a smartphone to China or Russia. I'd probably just get an old flip phone. Now, if you do have to take your smartphone, of course, it's very hard to live without them. The number one rule of thumb would be turn off all biometrics, have a very strong password, turn on two-way authentication, and make sure your phone doesn't get into the hands of somebody else to do a SIM card swap, because that could also be very dangerous. Anyway, also make sure your security updates are installed. But I would avoid those countries if you can, and if you do go, leave your smartphone at home or delete your crypto apps. That's kind of it for today. So big thank you to everybody for all the support. If you like this content, every week we do this. Hit the like, subscribe, etc. And we'll get back to our regular viewing tomorrow. Thanks all.